alpha lover, and welcome back to Breaking Waves. It is a Friday. That means it's our Financial Friday show where we talk about our finances to help you make better decisions in your life. Today we have Simon Rowland again. He's going to be a consistent co-host for this show who will be helping us. He is a financial advisor, the CEO of Aurora Capital, and just an overall good guy. How are you this afternoon, Simon?
I'm well. Thank you for having me back. It's good to be here and having a chat around finances, something I passionate about, and hopefully we can get all the listeners out there passionate about their finances as well.
Yes, and for those of you who don't know, who may be joining us for the first time, Simon has a very extensive profile and background in finance. So he is definitely the right person to talk to when we're coming across these topics. I wanted to talk today about how parents can invest in their children. Having children is it requires a lot of financial commitment. But unfortunately, sometimes, like myself, I'm not talking about other people, I'm talking about myself specifically, sometimes they're unplanned. Sometimes we have children and we're not ready for the financial commitments. So I wanted to do this episode to really give people some insight on how they can better prepare for becoming parents when they decide to have children, or if even having children is. So, first of all, how was your afternoon?
So far, so good.
Yeah. And you're a father yourself. How's that journey been?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a wild ride. My son turned 6 in April. So, he arrived when I turned 30, just after my 30th birthday. And, he arrived, at a time where we're expecting him. Maybe yes, maybe no.
Same as me then.
Maybe a little bit before we were quite expecting, but and it was in a time where I was involved with my business. It was still very much in startup mode, still very much in not profit mode. So it was a stressful time financially for me. It was a tricky time. But having my son's been one of the coolest things that ever happened to me. It's been really cool, seeing him grow, seeing him evolve, seeing who he becomes. And I don't know, personally, I find it quite funny when you're like, you're exactly like me on that, or that's exactly like your mother, So it's cool kind of seeing the genetics and the traits come through and seeing who they become by themselves.
What are some of the changes that you've noticed before having a kid and then after having a kid, like financially?
Well, financially for me, the biggest actual financial difference, other than, all the nice trips I used to do away and stuff kind of became few and between, but was actually living off one income. So if you're already on one income, that makes it even harder. But if you have two incomes and you have children, gearing your life to be used to one income, at least for a short term, is something that's was advice given to me when I was younger. It was, live off one, save the other. Was always the kind of rule of thumb. Not always practical, not always easy, but the idea of going, okay, one day we do want to have kids, so therefore we've got to make sure that one income can pay the bills and can pay the expenses. The second thing I made sure to do before having children, though, was to have no debt. So I didn't have any car payments, didn't have any Harvey Norman, didn't have a credit card that was outstanding, because all that sort of stuff just erodes at the, your pay comes in and then whoop, everything else gets paid and then you're trying to live off the rest. So clearing that stuff is really important, because an extra $150 here, $80 here, $100 there, that's all the difference, So I think definitely being smart with your money before the kids arrive is going to help you really make good decisions. So once they are there, you can plan it better.
Absolutely. And I think, for example, sometimes children are planned, sometimes children aren't planned. What are some things that you feel, everyone's financial situation is different, but if you're in a position where you're on one income and, you're going to have a child, what are some things that a parent should take into consideration, while going through this process?
Yeah. I mean, well, before having my son, we were renting a house. So I had owned houses in the past, but then we'd sold them to start the business. So a few things that we did, other than paying off all the silly debt that we had lying around the house, is we actually moved to a cheaper place. Like, we were renting in Auckland and in Grey Lynn. It was quite expensive. And for $200 a week less, we could buy a house somewhere else, and we bought a house down south in Christchurch.
Mm.
And for us, that was a really good move as well, because it just meant instantly we're a few $100s better off, and, putting money into something that we own as well.
Mm.
So other things that, like, and I mean, this is where you really are probably the expert as a single mom of what you can do to really make it work. But for me, it's just getting those debts down, and then thinking about who have you got in your network who can help with childcare.
Right.
Are your parents still active? Are they still able? Are they
Yes.
nearby? The grandparents of the child, can they help out?
It's putting your kid in daycare is pretty expensive nowadays, eh?
Especially until they were, I think it was 2 when my son, when it started getting cheaper. I know that he got 20 hours for free after a while, but at the start, we were quite lucky that my partner at the time, she didn't have to work. We'd planned to only live off one income, so we were okay. But then once she went back to work, that made things a lot easier. And then when the free 20 hours a week, that became a lot easier. But it adds up. Some people are paying $300, $400 a week.
Yeah,
in
that's a lot of
childcare,
money. Yeah.
just to make $800, $700 a week at work. And it's kind of, where's the, it seems a bit strange to me. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear how you got around things. There might be things that you've learned that are, can help people out there.
Yeah, I think my daughter started daycare when she was 2. So just when she was 2, we put her into daycare. But there was a lot of assistance from government. There's that 20 hours ECE. I don't know if that's still happening anymore, but
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, childcare can cost anywhere between $300 to $500. But in my position, I had a child at 22, and it was very hard. It was I had to consider a lot of things. We weren't living in our own home, and that was stressful in itself for me, because when you're starting a family, you kind of need your own space. And it takes me back to the shared living spaces Pacific families are very used to, and we can live in these homes, but oftentimes there's a lot of disagreements.
Family politics.
Politics. There's things you can't do in your own home that you can do in someone else's home, and it becomes very stressful for a family unit. And then when you have mom stress and dad stress and you have a newborn child, it's just chaotic.
Yeah.
And I think majority of divorces happen nowadays because of money. So
definitely,
money is like a pillar. It's something that always needs to be considered when you're having a child. But unfortunately, the world's not perfect. There are people who are put into situations where they have to just kind of survive and provide for their children. But for me personally, it's having a kid changed my life. I feel like if I didn't have a kid, I'd still be partying and doing whatever I wanted, that solo independent life that I enjoyed. But I really the one thing I'm thankful for having a daughter is her pushing me to be a better person. And I'm sure a lot of other parents can relate as well. I'm sure you can yourself. It's definitely. Mode activated. Okay, it's not just me now. It puts you in a microscopic vision. It's not just about you.
Yeah.
Would you say the same thing about having a kid? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always, for me, it's always been a big priority to make sure that I could provide. I had a pretty good upbringing, right? I never had any stress about money. Never, we didn't have brand new this and brand new that, but we always had everything we needed, right? And that's something that was important to me, that my son would get that. So I've always been quite forward thinking about which schools he will attend, how will we pay for that. Not to say that the immediate short term things were a little bit tricky to get around, but so it is something that you've got to think about. And I think there is ways that you can guide people to being slightly better with money, especially when the kids are new. The biggest one I always thought was we never bought brand new clothes for my son. We just thought, other than from Farmers or Kmart or something, but no designer clothes, no fancy shoes. I see people and they've got kids and they're wearing Nike shoes and stuff. And I'm going, but you don't own your own home. You don't own your own car. Your kid doesn't care.
If he's wearing Nike or Adidas
or whatever, and so getting having friends who've got kids as well who might be slightly older, it's great, because I mean we would pass around clothes, they'd go from one family to our family to the next family. The bikes and the toys would go from one family to our family and you sort of just pass every now and then. You'd add something in and pass it along, and I think that should be encouraged as well. I don't think that whole mentality of buying the most expensive this, buying the most expensive that. For me, the two things that were important were education and safety. So education and safety, I'm happy to spend quite a bit of money on. and invest a lot of money into my son for that. But keeping up with the Joneses, that sort of
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
it just takes away. Your kid doesn't know that they had the most expensive this or the most expensive that.
Absolutely.
And it comes down even to food. Like, I don't know about you, but my son, he doesn't eat a lot. Like, you know, compared to an adult, he eats nothing. So
Yeah.
like, food, he doesn't cost anything. Clothing, he doesn't cost that much. You know, yes, kindy when he was there, other than 20 hours, it cost a bit, but other than that, he actually hasn't been much of a financial burden, other
Right,
than
right.
losing one income for the
Yeah.
first 3 years of his life. So once his mother started working again, it wasn't so bad for us. But now that he's 5, 6, now we're seeing some costs coming in, going, oh, he
Yes.
needs to go for lessons, oh, he needs to
Yeah.
go to this school, oh, he needs to do that. But it's all about keeping it, within a budget.
Absolutely. I feel like as they grow older, it'll get more expensive, eh?
Definitely.
But when they're like below 5, it's actually quite easy.
Yeah.
Not many costs. I like the idea of passing down. I think we had a lot of hand-me-downs as well.
Yeah.
For my daughter, and it was awesome. She got a lot of toys, secondhand toys, and I think it only becomes expensive. Social media doesn't help. You know, everyone wants to be, the Joneses.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to have that new crib with
Yeah.
like new $400 for a car seat, and it's
Yeah.
like you can get it cheaper on Facebook Marketplace or something like that.
Exactly. I
So
mean, we bought secondhand, and we bought good secondhand stuff, but it was still secondhand. It was the top spec,
Yeah.
car seat for the kid, but it was, it was just 2 years old or something. Some other
Yeah.
kid had used it first, and my son grew out of it straight away anyway. And you got to get the bigger one, right? So like,
Exactly.
yeah, don't spend money on that sort of stuff. That for me, it just seems that's $50 here, $100 here, $100 here. If you relate that back to time, that's 5 hours of work here,
Exactly.
3 hours of work here, 7 hours of work here, and it's a lot of time for something that's not necessary. If you've got the money, great, spend it. But if you don't, be smarter with it.
Exactly. Definitely. And what are some ways, what are you thinking about financially for your kid? Like, is it more of their future? Because right now, they're young. Like you said, they don't care like what they're wearing, or they're not trying to prove to their friends they've got expensive clothes. But for you personally, what are you thinking about in regards to how to invest for your kid?
So for me, it's all about education, opportunities, and then but basically that education opportunity. So how do I get my son to where he gets a really good education? What do I need to provide to make that happen? And then opportunities. What do I mean by that? By like being able to be involved in the sports team, being able to go on that school camp, being
Yes.
able to I was really lucky when I was 17. I did an exchange, so I was an exchange student in Switzerland for a year.
Oh, cool.
And that was a lot of fun, right? Luckily, my grandfather had died the year before, so my parents could afford it. But like, I want to make sure that I've got enough money that my son can do that sort of stuff as well. Because
Yep.
for me, it's about making sure that they're a well-rounded, individual, and they've met people who like to do cool things, and they want to do cool things. So sort of things that I thought about was, okay, education, how much does that actually cost? Well, the good news is, good news-ish, is actually university in New Zealand doesn't cost that much money, right? You've got to, borrow a bit of money as you get a student loan or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's it might cost a parent $50,000, plus it's, you're getting a student loan if they live away from home, which they should do. So it's not a huge thing. But if you start when the child's young, right? So there's sort of two things, right? So it's education, and the second one is getting them into their own home. The Bank of Mum and Dad is the 5th biggest lender in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So if my son one day is going to hit me up, hope he doesn't, but if he does hit me up and say, hey, Dad, I need help getting into a property, well, first and foremost, I'm going to go, well, you got a good education, so that should be a good enough start, right? If you've got a good education, you're not in debt because your parents put you into debt for no real reason, then you should be okay to get a job and make it on your own. But if, like now, well, especially in the last couple of years where Auckland house prices just been crazy,
Oh, it's crazy.
the likelihood of someone being able to get a deposit together is just really hard, especially if you've got a kid. So if mum and dad can lend that deposit, right? So, this is where Kids KiwiSaver is a real important thing. Think of it as like as a savings account for your kids. If you're putting $5, $10 a week, nothing crazy, but consistently every week from when they're young, by the time they're 20, 25, especially if they get jobs, even if it's part-time while they're working and contribute themselves, by the time they're 25, they can have 150, 200 grand in there.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's crazy how much money, just a small amount put in weekly, even $20 a week for, 20 years. And then suddenly when they get to 25 and they go, oh, I need money to buy a house, you go, well, check your KiwiSaver. There's $180,000 there that you can touch only for first home.
Yeah.
So that's where KiwiSaver beats like a regular savings account.
Kids can get KiwiSaver?
Kids can get KiwiSaver. Yeah, no, definitely. Kids can get KiwiSaver, and it's a really good option. There's the other end of the spectrum as well. Something that farmers do is farmers, when their kids are born, they'll quite often put $20,000 into a KiwiSaver-like account, like a managed fund. So when the kids are 13, 14, 15, they can send them away to boarding school because they've got the money from putting that money aside. But that's obviously probably not everyone who's listening. But for me, yeah. So how do we think about getting education? Well, education, do they want to go to private school or not? My personal opinion is private school is only good at high school in New Zealand, and even then, it depends on the kid. So I'm waiting to see if my son is the type of person who should go to a private school or not. Or go to just a good public school. I mean, I went to public school. Most people I know went to public school. But to go to a good public school, you got to live in a good area, so that has a cost as well. But it's all about just making decisions and seeing what's actual priority to you. Like, what do you value? If education, like I've got friends who don't value sending their kids to like a really good school. It's not high of a priority to them. They think they all go to the same university anyway. Send them to the local school. I lean the other way. I think, well, if I can get my son into a better school, I will. And if I, that's something that I work hard towards. But yeah, it's all comes back to your values, right?
Yeah. So
KiwiSaver though is the way to go.
Yeah. Education, education and savings for their future homes.
Yeah.
Your child is very lucky.
Yeah.
So what would be some, for someone who's in a position, let's just say, for example, as an example, single income who is having trouble getting support, who maybe doesn't even have $5, or $10 to get into a position to save for their children, what would be your advice to someone in that position? Because that's where my interest is.
Again, I mean, I can't say that I've been in those shoes, right? So I really can't be like genuine and say, oh, this is what you should do. It's easy. Just go out and do this and do that. Like, I'm not that kind of person. Having two incomes always helps, right? So maybe get on the dating apps and meet someone. But you can see people who just, if they're organized, right, they can do better with less. So if you are in a lower income, first thing is pay off any debt and don't say yes to any. If you can't afford a big TV, don't have one. Go and get a second-hand one. It's fine. It'll work. It'll do the same thing. You and your kids won't notice the difference. It's the same with like couches and furniture. Some people will pay $5,000 at Harvey Norman for a couch, but yet there's people who can't even throw away their couch for free and it's still a good couch, like, so it's just about being a bit wiser with money.
Living within your means.
Yeah, having a budget is so super important, knowing how much you earn, what things cost, and always trying to, like I always recommend people trying to build a rainy day fund. So again, easier if you use two incomes or if you've got a better income if you're a single person. But, people should try and save 2 to 3 months of their salary. So whatever their salary is, like I've always had 6 months of my salary in savings locked away because I never know when the business is going to go so bad, right, that I need to live off my savings. So luckily I've got the business to a point now where that's probably can be put into something else. But even when I was young, even when I was working at Caltex, even when I was working at Courier Post on West Auckland, I made sure I saved up as much as I could to have that sort of security. So the number one thing is start saving, stop spending. And it's either, you've got two options, right? It's either going to hurt being, broke, or it's going to hurt being disciplined. So you just choose which one you want. But one of them leads to eventually you getting ahead and having some good habits.
And just my last question to you, what would be 3 practical ways parents can engage with their children so they can have healthier mentalities and relationships with money?
Talk about money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know why, but I always talked about money with my parents, mainly my dad, like 90% with my dad. I'd always talk to him about money.
What do you think? Why do you think people have problems talking about money in the first place? What's your kind of?
We just have that stigma about it, right? And honestly, it's because you get judged both ways. You get judged if you don't have enough, and you get judged if you have too much. Like it's for some reason Hana's doing really well, you know, judge her, or Hana's not doing that well, judge her. And it's so people just kind of go, you know what? I'm not really here to be judged, so I'll just keep that to myself. So I really think that's the biggest issue. But for me, talking about money actually educates your kids on, hey, this costs X, this costs Y, I earn X. Like, I remember talking with my dad about, you know, how much does he earn? You know, how much will he earn next year? Why will he earn more? How does that? And like whiteboarding it out as a kid, right? I was just interested in that sort of stuff. So, so I knew all the time. So, yeah. Question again?
The question was 3 practical ways. So one is talking to your parents or parents talking to your children about money.
Yep. Second thing is teaching your kids like, hey, like, so there's a really good app out there called Square One. It's like Square One.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, what do they call it? Like a piggy bank. It's like a digital piggy bank for your kids. So you can actually set up your children with their own account. And you can transfer money into their accounts for when they, you know, you took out the rubbish, you cleaned the house, you did your chores, you know, you got a good grade in your homework, and you can actually give money to the kids.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. And then you can actually get a card so the kids can go and spend it. So they can spend you know, say they've got $20 in there, you know, and then they can actually go, I've got a savings account for home, I've got a savings account for a trip to Fiji, and I've got Taylor Swift concert tickets, you know, like they can have 3 things that they're saving for.
And that's so important to learn at such a young age. Totally. So like when you get to a place where it's going to be mortgage, it's going to be student loan. So learning that young is very important.
And understanding the value of a dollar, right? Because I've seen friends, and one of them, he's an amazing guy, but he's super generous with money. But too generous. Like, it's like he just, as soon as he gets it, he feels he has to give it away to everyone. So,
why do you think people have that mindset? Because I also know people like that, and I used to be like that.
I think it's just it's not a bad thing to be generous, right? So no one goes, stop being generous, because it's not a bad thing. So we get told it's a good thing. We see that maybe his parents were generous as well. So that's all he knows, that's what he's seen, so that's how he is. So, you know, and it's hard to say stop being generous, but I tell him, I say, dude, stop paying for things, I can buy it myself. Worry about your own bills. And so it comes back to that whole thing of talking about it, right? So if you talk about it, you know, it just starts demystifying money. But for me, like I first time I went to a casino, to like Sky City in Auckland, my friends were like, let's put like $100 on the roulette. I'm like, that's like, this is a long time ago. I was like, that's like 10 hours work, you know, like, why would I want to throw away 10 hours of my shitty job, pardon my language, to like maybe lose it all? Maybe. So I was like, no. So I barely spent anything at the casino, because I was like, I didn't see any value in that. Where my other friends were like, yay, let's go. So definitely teaching your kids about money is from an early age. Like, and even like my son, right? Often he'll go, you know, let's just ask dad for his money. I'm like, what do you mean for my money? It's, you know, like let's talk about this before we just spend money on things. So, so I think, education around money, talking about money, and then being an example. You know, actually,
I think that's the best way, right?
You have to, like, kids pick up on everything, right? I can't get anything past my son now without him noticing. Like, he picks up on every little detail. You said this last time, you said this, and I'm like, okay, all right. No, he's, you know, okay. So be an example. Show them that you are being smart with your money. Show them that you are thinking about money. And actually have a plan. It's okay. You know, hey, if we're going to have a kid now, how much is it going to cost? Where's our income? What are the things? Do we want another one? Okay, times it all by 1.8. It's probably not by 2, because there's some, you know, you can reuse some clothes.
Exactly.
You can have the same babysitter look after 2 as you can after 1, so it's not exactly double the cost. But so that's probably my 3 things: is talk about money, you know, educate them on it, and then be an example.
Being an example, I think, is super important. One funny story that I'll share with you is my daughter, she's turning 7 soon. So she's in year 2 in primary, and I gave her a little treasure box where, like, if she finds like random notes around the house or like little coins. I lost my wallet, and my wallet had my phone in it. So I didn't have any cards to pay. I did not want to wait in a Westpac line for like 30 minutes to get money out. And she randomly comes out with the treasure box that I told her to put random money that she'd find in it.
Yeah.
And she had like $50 in it. And I was like, oh, there goes my gas money. Then I had enough money to go to collect my phone. But that was kind of her picking up.
Did you pay her back?
I did pay her back.
Okay, good. Yeah,
I put it back in her.
Because otherwise, you're doing the same thing that you've talked about, is how you've always had to hand money up to your parents, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And you don't want her to go, oh, my money's just now mum's money.
Yeah.
You should pay her back, and with interest.
So I paid her back, and then when we go shopping...
Not much interest.
Nah, not much interest. She doesn't pay for the rent.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So now when we go shopping, she has her budget, which she knows she collected, and then I kind of have mine.
Cool.
And she'll pick up also money from, like, you know, cleaning her room and those kind of things. But it's to teach her.
Yeah,
like,
that's the best thing you can do, is just start teaching them with money, teaching them the value of money, and rewarding things like, hey, you've saved a lot of money, congratulations. I'll even give you some more now. Oh, hey, you've spent less than what you budgeted. Great, high five. You know, let's go for ice cream because we can. Rather than let's go for ice cream, and you know, maybe if you can think about savings.
So I don't have an excuse anymore. She'll be like, Mom, I want McDonald's. And I'll be like, oh, I don't have anyone. She's like, no, it's okay. I've got the money. Let's go to McDonald's now. Or let's go get some ice cream now. Let's go toy shopping now. And I'm just like, she's only 6.
Yeah.
And the things that their young minds can pick up is incredible.
So now's the time to start saying, great, but let's put something towards something else.
Yes,
so you've got 3 piggy banks, one for McDonald's and ice cream, one for whatever the next big thing they might want, and one is for Mum's rainy day.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for that, Simon. Thank you for coming onto our show.
No worries.
Is there any last words that you wanted to share with
No, I think that's it. The main thing is, you know, if you are, things you can do as well. If you want to be a good parent, right, and I'll just be honest, get insurance, right? If all the time, like, so one of my companies, we've got 30,000 clients, mum and dads, they're just like you and I, and all of them need what's called income protection and life insurance. It doesn't cost much, but you know, if you're a 2-parent family and one parent can't work, right, insurance shows up, pays all your bills, looks after everything. You don't go backwards. If you know, unlucky enough, you know, and you pass away, all the bills are covered. Like it's just a smart thing to do. So for me, I'd been working in financial services since I was 21. So 9 years, I never had any insurance. But the split second I had my son, great. I loaded up on life insurance, loaded up on income protection. Yeah. Because, you know, hey, if I can't go to work and provide for my family, well, then the insurance kicks in as well.
Absolutely.
So it's not expensive. It's money worthwhile. You know, the first check is always to the mortgage, second check is always to insurance.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the financial advisors, accountants, that's their first advice, to get insurance.
Yeah.
Because it just shows, you know, that rainy day, if you don't have money for that rainy day, it'll come through.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important. And it's something I'm passionate about, because you can get insurance, what, $10 a week?
Yeah,
depending on your age.
It might be 15, but it's not a lot of money for how much value you get out of it if you do actually need it, you know.
Yeah.
And then get into savings, get a Square One account, get a piggy bank, get a KiwiSaver, kids KiwiSaver, and make money fun. But talk about it, you know. Don't make it a taboo subject with your kids. Teach them the value of money and teach them to be good with it.
Absolutely. Good advice. If anyone is listening and you want to know more about insurance, you know, you've heard about it, but you never wanted to commit to it, we will put a number that you can call in a safe space, but it's Afi Financial. They can give you advice on what type of insurance you should be on. And, you know, we're not going to try and sell you something that you actually don't need. It's very practical for your living situation. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Please like, follow and subscribe us to our YouTube and also TikTok and Instagram. And remember, don't miss our Financial Fridays. Better ways to spend your money, save your money with us here at Breaking Waves.